Okay, here's a tutorial posted for, we're going to be making a short After Effects commercial, and we're going to demonstrate importing from Photoshop and from Illustrator, and then go through some of the process of animating some of those objects. So, we got a sample project folder here, right here, and in it I've already got my images. I just grabbed these off the internet since this is just an academic exercise and we're not doing this for actual commercial purposes. I'm just using some images off the internet. If you were doing this commercially, you couldn't just grab those off. So I've got a guacamole picture, I've got wood texture in the background, and then I've got these tortilla chips. So I'm doing a restaurant commercial, just a real short thing, and here's my PSD. So I took those images and I put them in here, and remember those had white backgrounds, so I did some I cut the white background out of those, added the shadow, cut the chip out of those pair of chips, got some text going on here, and then I've got the background for that. So I'm going to want to put this into Adobe After Effects. So let's go over to Adobe After Effects, launch it if you haven't already. And we're going to want to create a new project. So go ahead and go to New Composition. If this doesn't pop up, you can get that from File, New, either New Project or Composition, New Composition right up there. Okay, we want our size to be 1920 by 1080. 1920, 1080. You can go ahead and hit that or not, it doesn't really matter. I'm going to just name this sample project. You name it whatever you want to. We're going to leave these settings as this, 29.97, and we're going to hit OK. Okay, so here's our 1080 by 1920 design, blank, empty. So what we want to do is, the great thing about After Effects is we can import those assets from Photoshop and then move them around and animate them here. So it's as simple as going up to File, Import, File. But before we do that, let's take another look at the Photoshop document. Notice I've got a few different layers here. I've got one, it's called wood, and I named it wood because it's the wood. I named one guacamole, one chip, and one reason for doing this, or at least a reason it'd be good for you to do this, is to organize your file so that when you do import it, you know exactly what the layer is without having to rename it then. So I've got a group of text. These are actually three different things kind of on top of each other because they're thinner than I wanted them. And I'm importing some as text, and one also I saved as an image that you can't edit in case After Effects will handle that better. Don't worry about that so much. But just make sure you got your separate layers and name them something understandable if you want to make it easier on yourself for that aspect. If you don't, it'll still work. Okay. Nope, don't need to save those changes. So here's my composition within my project. This is my project. This is a composition. You have multiple compositions. So we're going to import to this composition. So I'm going to go to File, Import, File, or Command-I or Control-I if you're on a Windows. And you want to navigate. Mine is already there, but you want to go to wherever you've got your file. Mine's under Desktop Sample Project. And I want to import this sample, not these images. These are the images I downloaded and edited. This is the file that I want to load. Okay, now if I just hit open, it's going to load it as footage, and that's not what I want. I want to be able to manage each thing individually. So go to Composition, Retain Layer Sizes. If you do Composition, it'll get the layers, but it's all going to be the same size layers as the file size in the Photoshop document. This will give them individual size layers. So go ahead and make sure you've got that. Leave that box unchecked, hit open. And go ahead and you can either editable layer styles or merge layer styles into footage. If you have a whole lot of layer styles, you may have to experiment with that, but just go ahead and merge, hit OK. Okay, now you're going to notice that it created actually its own composition, so I don't need that composition. Now I might need to if my Photoshop document wasn't set at the right size, but it just so happens I made my Photoshop the right size. So if it's not the right size, you could come in here, right click, composition settings, and make sure it has the right settings, or you could copy and paste these into this project. So we'll go ahead and just delete that original project I made. You don't have to create that one since you import this. Okay, so now I've got my sample, and here are all those images, and they're each layer. You see there, you've got the chips, you've got the font, you've got more font, you've got more font, and see what it did is it actually took my layer group and made it a group within itself. That folder within Photoshop. Okay, more. Okay, there's my guacamole, there's my wood. Okay, now it's already created a composition with those, and it happens to be the right size. If it's not, go ahead and edit that before proceeding. So here are my objects that I'm going to move around, and here they are on my timeline. We've got this text right there, and this text, I'm going to go ahead and delete that one. I'm just going to use this image one. I've got my chip, my guacamole, and my wood. Okay. And you can see my animation set up for 30 seconds right now. I'm not going to need 30 seconds for this. I'm just going to drag these down to 15 seconds. Your final animation will need to be 15 to 30 seconds long. So I've got these set there, and all I need to do now is animate these in and such. But we're going to do another aspect to this animation also. And so let's go ahead and import those assets. I've got an Illustrator file that I put together, or at least rearranged here to be the right size. And so I've got my restaurant's logo right here, and I've got the background. Now this is kind of important. I put them on separate layers. So this layer is my logo. This layer is my background. Now I didn't name them, so I'll go ahead and name them logo, background, or BG green. So there we go. I'm going to save that and close that. So now I'm going to import those. So I'm going to go to File, Import, File, and I'll click on that. It knows what kind it is. Select Input Composition, Retain Layer Size, leave that off, hit Open. Okay, and now it's going to create another composition with those two in it. Okay, we'll come back to that later, but now I've got those individual layers there, and then I've got the composition with them already in there. All right, so let's go back. That covers the importing them into After Effects to get them animated. So I'm going to stop the tutorial here, and I'll pick up with the next one with animating the project.